So it's a game that is just about done here on Sunday Night Football in Pittsburgh. And it is an incredibly frustrating result against the Green Bay Packers. Your final should end up being Green Bay 35, Pittsburgh 25. Uh, in a game that's less a story of two halves uh, and more a story of, you know, one quarter versus three quarters. Uh, and I think it's just the epitome of the Steelers under Mike Tomlin that has put us in this situation where we come up against our first big test of the season and we fail in what I'd argue is an a very disappointing and demoralizing way. Obviously, coming off of the loss, uh, about 10 days ago now to the Cincinnati Bengals. Um, rough game there too. Defense didn't show up. Defense really didn't show up again today. Albeit, credit to the Packers. They have a very, very talented offense. They came in. They did exactly what they needed to do. So, on that side of things, credit goes to the Packers. They earned this win specifically with their performance in the second half. Jordan Love played great, was very efficient. Tucker Kraft was very, very good. That Green Bay defense kept our offense pretty consistently behind the sticks, put us in a bunch of third and longs, and just kept us quiet the whole game. But there are, I definitely want to start talking about the defense because this is the second stint this year now where the defense has been a massive issue. And I think that this is a game that shows just how much Mike Tomlin has passed his expiration date in Pittsburgh because the issue with this defense, and, again, Tomlin, great guy, does do a good job to get a lot out of his players. As the game has officially gone final, as Packers just picked up a first down here. But, it just, we see the same defensive schematics every week. We see the same defensive weaknesses every week. We see the same offensive weaknesses and inconsistencies every week. And it's been the same thing for, 10 odd years now since the last time we won a playoff game. Where, again, with defenses, it's soft zone. We'll bring some pressure, but, we'll go up against quarterbacks who can either extend plays or, come in with a good game plan. And they're just able to hit those quick stick routes, and we're unable to cover super close. And it just continues to be more and more frustrating. I think a big thing of note for the Steelers defense was the loss of Deshaun Elliott pretty early in the second half, and that was really the dagger there. The Steelers defense cannot operate without Deshaun Elliott, and that I think is one of the biggest red flags about this unit is you take one player out, albeit Deshaun Elliott. I'd argue, certainly not one of the stars of this defense. But when one of your non-stars is so much of a linchpin that you take them out and the entire defensive structure just collapses, I think that is an indictment on your scheme. That is an indictment on your play calling. That's an indictment on everything. And don't get me wrong, this is not our defensive coordinator's defense. This is Mike Tomlin's defense. You bring the play, it gets more and more and more frustrating when the names change on the back of the jerseys, but the play stays the same. The secondary as well, maybe didn't play their worst game. They certainly didn't play as poorly as they did against Cincinnati. I do think that they were marginally better. But ultimately, it was the lack of a pass rush, and it was the fact that Jordan Love was able to get rid of the ball quickly, and we were also unable to force mistakes. when he had to go for that floater, when he did feel the pressure. Because the Steelers had no sacks today. And when you have the most expensive defensive unit in the NFL giving up over 30 points in back-to-back games, that is a massive, massive problem. This is a Green Bay offense that has not looked good at portions this year. Hell, they didn't look good in the first half. But it's, we can't rely on other teams not performing well, shooting themselves in the foot. Because, in that first half, the Steelers certainly didn't play well. Yes, we did come out with I think it was a 16-7 lead at the half. But, really it should have been 16-13. There were 2 Brandon McManus missed field goals. So really it's, taking advantage of those, taking advantage of some of those short fields, and then, getting behind the sticks with either a sack or a penalty or some other negative play. And again, it just, the Steelers team does none of the things that you'd expect an actual competitive football team to do. And it's been week in, week out, where, hey, if the defense isn't making splash plays, if we're not forcing turnovers, the Steelers aren't going to win football games. And you can't build a team around, getting turnovers, especially when it's, hey, we're playing a team that takes care of the ball. Okay, we're kind of screwed. A team that limits their mistakes, we're just kind of screwed. And it's just like I don't have an answer for it anymore. I can't speak on it anymore. And I'm very much at wit's end with Mike Tomlin. Just because, again, how many things have changed since Dick LeBeau left, yet we still see the same defense that got picked apart by Tom Brady every year, every time we got into the playoffs. And then Joe Flacco used those same things to pick apart the Steelers defense last week. And Jordan Love does the same thing again this week. And that's just how you beat the most expensive defensive unit in the league. Where, we even invested more money into it by going and getting Jalen Ramsey, who I'm pretty sure is still around for another year. And it just continues to be less and less acceptable. Speaking on the offense, I think the offense is similarly frustrating, and there's kind of 2 aspects to this. I thought the first half we actually played decently well. Obviously 16 points. Some of those benefited by some better field position, benefited by some penalties. But ultimately, we were able to put points on the board with a good bit of consistency. And we were also able to run the ball pretty well in the first half. We saw a lot of the jumbo package with Spencer Anderson and the tight end. I almost said Denzel Perryman. Darnell Washington, kind of on the field, both kind of lined up on the outside of the O-line. Just get, effectively 7 linemen on the field and be able to run the ball. And we did that really, really effectively in the first half. I think Jalen Warren had over 60 yards. But in the second half, we saw, I think, when this offense falls out of sync, it is a massive issue because there are 2 phases to this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. There is the Arthur Smith offense, which is the let's get jumbo personnel out there. Let's get let's get some triple tight end looks in there, and obviously some other 2 tight end looks. Have a couple of more lighter packages in there, and just set up to be able to run the ball. Run the ball effectively, go to play action, work from there. You then also have the Aaron Rodgers side of the offense, which is the more, hey, let's spread it out in shotgun. Let's get some, like quick little reads, quick bubble screens, quick shots over the middle, occasionally a couple of extra deep shots down the field, but a lot of passing attack, not a lot of play action, not a lot of rollout, a lot of kind of standing in the pocket, quick fire over the middle. The issue quickly becomes when one of those things stops working, or we stop going to one of those things, the entire offense starts to shut down. And we saw that in the second half, where for whatever reason, we massively got away from that run game. We got away from, Jalen Warren had maybe one carry in the second half. I need to take a look here. I want to take a look to see what the actual breakdown is here. Let's see. Rogers incomplete. Rogers pass. Rogers pass. Jalen Warren, one carry for 4 yards. Caught a pass for 11. Let's see. I think, yeah, let's see. So scrolling through here. 2 carries for 7 yards. 3 carries for 12. Yeah, I think Jalen Warren in the second half had 3 carries for 12 yards and I think 1 catch. Like I don't understand. Jalen Warren is the single most explosive player in this offense, and I don't understand why we refuse to utilize him. Because I think he ended the game with 14 carries for 67 yards. What did he end with? Yeah, he ended with 13 carries for 62 yards. Kenneth Gainwell also had 5 carries for 31 yards. But we threw the ball 36 times and ran the ball 18 times. And that's not something that we can do, because we were up for large portions of that game. And yet we're still like, okay, yes, we're averaging, what did we end up averaging? 5.2 yards a carry. Let's just not run the ball in the second half. Yeah, we're going into the half with a 9-point lead. Let's just not run the ball in the second half, because it clearly wasn't effective. And I don't know if that's egos getting involved. I don't know if that's and maybe it's part of why I was concerned about bringing Aaron in, because, and maybe it is, hey, was getting different looks at the line in the second half. The Packers lined up to stop the run a lot better, but we're still able to drop out into pass coverage situations very well. And maybe that's the case, and maybe I'm off base here. But I feel like a lot of that was going in halftime. There was a clear shift from wanting to run the ball to wanting to throw the ball. And ultimately, I think that is more likely to be an Aaron Rodgers call than an Arthur Smith call, because of those two different offenses that the Steelers are doing their best to try and mesh together. I guess, obviously talking about the running game actually being very solid, and then it's getting away from it. Special teams, I'll highlight Chris Boswell. Thank God you exist. Otherwise, the Steelers might score 15 points a game. I think he was 4 for 4 today. He was either 3 for 3 or 4 for 4. Where did he end up? Yeah, Boswell was 4 for 4, and I think 3 of those were over 50 yards, and the other was like 48. So thank God for Chris Boswell, because we don't have much else. So definitely shout out to the Boz. But like when we're facing upper crust teams like the Packers, our next opponent is the Colts. We face the Chargers. Yes, we played the Pats, but they fumbled the ball 5 times and we only beat them by 3 points. The Steelers do not do what competing teams do, and that is be able to pull out wins when it matters. And that's been clear the past 2 weeks. We don't want to, this team only has so much. You take out one piece and it falls apart. For the defense, that was Deshaun Elliott. For the offense, it was the run game. And it's self-inflicted. And that is the most frustrating part. And all around the organization, we've seen so many changes over the past few years. Mostly at quarterback, as I'm actually going to turn off the TV because I see that flashing on me. I got the voice. but I firmly believe that this regime has finally outlived its usefulness with this team. And Mike Tomlin could go somewhere else and be very successful, whether that's in the NFL, whether that's in college, wherever that ends up being. But ultimately, if we don't see some serious changes, I think it very much might be time for Mike Tomlin to go. Yeah, if we don't win a playoff game, there's been rumors of Aaron Rodgers coming back. If he does, then I might not wear a Steelers jersey the entirety of next year. But yeah, it is extremely frustrating. Steelers still lead the North, still by I believe 2 games after the Bengals lost to the Jets. But the Ravens will only get better. The Bengals will only get better, and we can't afford to play like this. We just can't, because if we actually want to compete, which I believe this franchise does, then some serious soul searching has to be done, because the past 2 weeks are not acceptable football. Um, but apologies for there not being a stream tonight. Would have been very frustrating. Uh, but unfortunately, my internet decided not to comply. Um, just had a whole bunch of issues with my service provider, where it was just kind of local outages, local throttling. So I was unable to get that going. Should hopefully be live tomorrow night for some Monday night football. I believe it's the last double header of Monday night games. Yeah, NFL Week 8. What are tomorrow night's games? Raven, or no, that's Week 9. Tomorrow is Commanders Chiefs, so we'll see how interesting that one is. But you'll see that stream go live about, probably about 5 minutes before kickoff. But ultimately, it's very frustrating as Steelers fall to 4-3 after dropping back-to-back games to the Bengals and to the Packers, and get another big test as they head to Indianapolis to face the top team in the AFC as of right now, in the Indianapolis Colts. Again, congratulations to the Packers on a very hard-fought win. And until next time, I will see you later. Have a good one.